Family, so glad to be back with you. Hope you've had a fantastic weekend since book club and a fantastic week since the last time we got together for Soul Swami Live. If this is your first time here, this is Soul Swami Live where we discuss healing in all its various forms for spiritual healing, emotional healing, mental healing, and physical healing. We do that through live energy readings. We do homework. We answer questions. We learn new principles to apply to our life. And we do it with our spin-off show on Thursday, which is book club, with an intention to allow us to be able to reconnect with the childlike energy that we do have. We do this so that we can create a community or a communal energy that we can all tap into to support our evolution and development to the best version of ourselves. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. So you can join us on any site that you feel the most comfortable with. At the beginning of every show, we do a little bit of energy work. And this week, we are working on the heart. The heart is our focal point for our love, our compassion, our empathy, our kindness, and our feelings of acceptance. I appreciate it. I like that green heart. The element for your heart is air, whether it's the internal air that you breathe or the air that you feel against your skin. If you are into color therapy or light therapy, you want to spend some time with green to be able to activate the energy of your heart. If you are into essential oils and aromatherapy, you want to think rose, jasmine, geranium are all good examples for your heart. If you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think emerald, jade, rose quartz, aventurine, green tourmaline. All of those are very good for your heart energy as well. The next thing we do is a little bit of sound therapy. I'm going to hit this bowl for a second, and then we're going to move into some breath work. During this time, all you really have to do is just relax and clear yourself for the stressors and worries of the day, and move into a space where we can learn together, a space for healing. I had to laugh a little bit because the bowl was so loud. So the energy for communication is high. I think that is partly because of Mercury no longer being in retrograde in Pisces in my sign. So all those communication mishaps we've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks, we now have an energy to be able to move beyond that and communicate with clarity and understanding, compassion and empathy, all those great things that help build connection. The next thing that we're going to do is a little bit of breath work. I am feeling like 478. If you are unfamiliar with 478 breathing exercise, that is you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. During this time, though, all you have to do is just listen to the sound of my voice as I guide you through the breathing exercise, the breath work, which is fantastically great for your heart because air is the element for that. On the count of 3, we will start with 478. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Next, I want you to repeat these affirmations, these heart affirmations after me. These are affirmations that you can tell yourself to enhance the power of your heart energy. And again, all you have to do is just repeat after me. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. I follow the voice of my heart. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. And I follow the voice of my heart. Family, I'm sitting here laughing at myself as I squiggle and wiggle in this chair. I can't help but think about that video where dude said you try to have an important conversation, but you in a chair that you can twirl in. And over the weekend, I wound up getting up with my homeboy. And when we stopped by his place, one of the things that he was most excited to show me was his new chair that he could swing in. He worked from home like me, so he was excited about his new work from home chair that he could swirl and twirl in. So as I wiggle in mine, I have to help. I can't help but laugh at myself that I'm still. These chairs bring so much joy. Doo doo doo. So much joy. And if you don't know, now you do. This is your weekly reminder that you can. Big kids. I mean, big. You should have seen Boz, girl. He was so excited. He's like, hey, man. Hey, look at my chair. He's spinning around for me. Oh my God. Then when he said it, he couldn't help but wiggling it too. Two big kids, man. Yeah, you know, I do my disappearing acts. So by the time I'm back outside, it's always somewhat of a celebration. And even more interesting, this was probably my first time going out in I don't even know how long. And I had zero alcohol, not one drink, not one sip. Generally in my life, it'd be some level of alcohol, either a little bit or a lot, but it was a completely sober day. So it was lit, honestly. But this is your reminder that you can purchase the 7 Spaces of Healing for yourself, available now on Amazon. This book is to help you conceptualize 7 spaces that will be important for you to cultivate within yourself and to make sure that you're a part of these 7 spaces as you go on your own personal journey with healing. The spaces include a space for love, a space for healing, a space for solitude, a space for trust, a space for risk without judgment, a space for accountability, and a space for forgiveness. Again, you can get this book yourself. Support the channel, support the family, support all the things that we do here with the purchase of the 7 Spaces of Healing, available now on Amazon. Do. I probably need to put a little. Oh, never mind. I ain't worried about it. All right. So, before we get started, it was a couple of things that wind up being stuck on my heart this week, right? So, one has been this idea of consistency, right? And it really started when a friend that I hadn't talked to in a while, and then when I talked to them again, a compliment that they gave me was, "Hey, I'm so proud that you've been so consistent with this show and things like that." And then I also get to see a couple of other people in the Soul family and other people not in the Soul family that I support in their own journey of streaming or connecting with people who resonate with them through social media, right? And one of the more difficult things that I wind up seeing is this idea of consistency, right? And I'm only saying this is because sometimes when we get stuck in the path of doing the work, we don't always get to see or we don't always recognize the tools that we have developed or the tools that we have sharpened that help us to navigate through this, right? And one that has been very important for all of us has been an energy of consistency, right? Being able to consistently show up for yourself, consistently show up for others, and creating a space so that you can show up for yourself and you can show up for others, as well as recognizing when others show up for you. Reciprocity is very huge in the energy that we are cultivating within ourselves. Reciprocity winds up being the things where we move from a space of being givers only to a space of being able to give and receive the same love or even greater love force than we had before, right? So I say this, if you've been a part of this or on your own spiritual journey, take some time and pat yourself on the back for the ways that you have been consistent. And if you recognize that you haven't quite been consistent, then also take some time to get back in alignment with consistent. Consistency is a very difficult thing, especially with life and responsibilities and accountabilities and all these things. Being able to show up weekly or being able to show up on your own cycle is something to be proud of because it is not easy. Many people struggle with it. And if you haven't been, or if you do struggle with it, you can always slide back into that space. Next thing that was on my mind, well, I'm an NPR holic. I I go through periods where when I get in my car, I listen to music. And then I go through periods when I get in my car, I listen to NPR. And I low key love NPR. So now I'm in my NPR phase, right? Even when I went out with my homeboy, every time I got in my car, we go to the next spot. I'm listening to NPR, right? But the other day, NPR was talking about something that I think kind of resonates with what we're talking about. And specifically, tonight we're going to discuss the law of rhythm. And it kind of ties into that, right? And being in a space to be receptive, right? And the conversation was around dating and flirting, right? And this conversation really caused me to reflect on myself and how I approach dating and flirting. One of the things that one of the things that was very important in understanding dating and flirting, one of the ways that the person on NPR suggested that we create opportunities to be able to get more of what we want from dating is by recognizing the energy that we carry, right? So NPR was suggesting that when we go out there in this world, one, we don't need to see dating as so transactional. What do they mean by transactional? It's like if I, as a man, see a woman that I like and I go to her and I like her, I try to initiate conversation with her, all under the pretense that I want some sort of connection, right? I want something from it. It's a transactional type of approaching to dating, right? And it's one that we've kind of normalized, even with men, especially with men, on how we approach dating. And what they wanted us to do to be able to create a space for us to be able to get more from dating that we want is to kind of carry the energy of flirting all the time, whether you are actually flirting or not, right? And what is very particular about that energy of flirting is the openness to receive the interactions and connections from various people, right? So sometimes we see some people and we talk about how they are a consistent flirt. Hey, Toddy, I'm glad you ain't that soft T-ball. Liberty. Toddy plays softball and T-ball at the same time. So we call it soft T-ball. they got them all on the same team, so you gotta forgive me. But the energy that they want you to carry is one that is open to receive, right? And the thing about it is, where I had to recognize in myself is, as I go out into this world, I don't always carry an energy that is open to receive, right? I look for my opportunities and I go for those opportunities. But being able to be open to opportunities presents new opportunities that you would not have noticed for yourself, right? So it isn't necessarily saying to be a flirt with everybody, but it's generally saying be a friendly person. Open up and have conversations with random people. And I know a lot of us, when we go out in this world, especially when I was younger, random people would talk to me all the time. And I used to always wonder, like, hey, Is there a sign on my head that says talk to me? Like it, no lie, it would be so crazy where I'd be minding my business and you see the person looking around for somebody to talk to, and you mess around and catch their eye contact and they come from way over there just like, hey, I seen you looking, and they tell you one of the wildest stories you ever heard, right? So I had to recognize that over the years, whether consciously or unconsciously, I lost some of that openness, right? I go out into the world probably partly because of phones, they keep us detached from making those connections. But I go out into the world trying to avoid anybody talking to me, right? And part of that was because I didn't want to be perceived as a flirt, right? And I recognize how I've let other people's opinion of the energy that I carried change the energy that I carried. And unconsciously, that energy of not being open, not being able to receive, one, reflects the struggles that I have with receiving, and two, blocks the possibilities for blessings and opportunities, right? So all of this is to say, as we go out in this world, when we want more opportunities, we want, especially out of dating, we want to go forward with an energy that is open to receive, not avoiding interactions and conversations, not worried about being seen as a flirt, but going as a person who is happy, who is content, who is satisfied, and doesn't mind interacting with one of the most beautiful things that our life experience gives us, the opportunity to interact with our fellow humans, right? So, yeah, Todd, I'm sorry. I ain't mean to put all your business. Yeah, I did. I was getting ready to say I ain't mean to put all your business in the street. Well, softy ball, but, I kind of did. I ain't even going to lie. All right, so last week, this is our review of last week. We are on the 12th law now, so we've gone through all 12 laws. We've been doing this for 12 weeks. But last week, we did the law of rhythm, right? The law of rhythm essentially is everything moves in cycles. All things rise and fall, advance and retreat, expand and contract. Life flows in rhythm, right? Rhythm is the movement between the two extremes, where hot and cold, and the movement in between those things is the rhythm of life, right? It is all the other emotions and feelings that we get to deal with as we navigate life, right? Something that was important. Um, doo, 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 doo. The law of rhythm helped us to understand why motivation comes and emotions fluctuate. We talked about how we struggle with the flow because sometimes we resist the natural flow of life. For example, when we have those down times, we overly or harshly judge ourselves as being unproductive instead of seeing that downtime as a reward for a job well done. That downtime requires a different set of energy, different set of tools to navigate that if we don't have that downtime, we never get to use those tools. Common ways that we resist is trying to stay happy all the time, judging ourselves harshly during low times, and fearing the downturn, a natural part of life. And as a matter of fact, it's not even naturally it's not even really a downturn. The language that we use to describe it winds up helping to create our anxiety and fear of it, right? So it is a moment of rest. Now, that moment of rest does not necessarily absolve us of responsibilities, but what it does is give us a space to reflect, recharge, integrate All those things, right? We talked about the difference between polarity and rhythm, which I stated. Polarity is the two extremes. Rhythm is the movement between those things. We talked about the science that support the law of rhythm, which is biology. Biology wound up being one of the strongest connections to that because our biology is established through rhythms. We talked about circadian rhythms, which is our internal 24-hour clock. We talked about ultradian rhythms. It's happened multiple times within 24 hours, such as the stages of sleep. We go from REM sleep to non-REM sleep. REM is rapid eye movement, generally when we're dreaming. We also talked about infraradian rhythms, which last longer than 24 hours. The example that we went into detail with is the menstrual cycle of our women, right? And that is a example of an infradian rhythm that we deal with, that our biology is set up on. Also, physiology supported the law of rhythm through this idea of homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is the body creating adjustment. It creates a balance through naturally adjusting, right? Our blood sugar rises and falls, our body temperatures fluctuate. All those things are evidence of our body trying to create a sense of homeostasis, a stability, a stable point in time. We also talked about the implications of the law of rhythm, which include high and low. Okay. Sorry, I just got a message. Highs and lows in our energy are normal, right? It does not mean something is wrong with you. It just means that you are experiencing something so very natural in life, right? So we move from thinking that low motivation means we're lazy, or confusion means that we're lost our growth, or even emotional dips doesn't necessarily mean that we have regressed, right? We also recognize that nothing lasts forever. Both success and struggle are temporary, right? So when we are in those down times, we can be in a space to be able to enjoy those a little bit more because we know it's temporary. Then when we are in those busy times, we can be in a space to enjoy those a little bit more because we also know that that's temporary, right? We talked about how resistance increases our suffering. Resisting that natural flow only increases our suffering, right? Forcing productivity during a time of rest only creates exhaustion and burnout. Panicking during emotional lows only increase our anxiety, right? We also recognize that we have to accept these flows to reduce our suffering, right? We also talked how timing matters more than force, right? Not every moment requires the same energy, right? High energy moments we're supposed to create, initiate, and decide. Low energy moments we're supposed to rest, reflect, and integrate, right? Not harshly judge ourselves for not being productive or when high energy harshly judging ourselves for not being in a space to be able to relax, right? We also talked about how we don't want to make permanent decisions in temporary states. We want to wait till we're not in one of those extremes, when we're in a space of homeostasis, as we used that word earlier, to try to make our long-term decisions, right? Don't want to do it when we're being too emotional or when we're too disconnected. Hey, I wish that this thing would talk. So when y'all talk to each other, it could be like, "Hey, Liberty," because I know she ain't reading the screen. Doo-doo-doo. Something that was very important about the implications of the law of rhythm was growth happens in cycles, right? But we went deeper beyond the growth and we wanted to identify what progress looks like, right? Because we have this idea of what progress looks like, and that idea of what progress looks like sometimes causes the stress or the suffering that we feel when we are in these moments. Progress looks like advances. There are moments where we go forward, and that is one step in progress. The next is plateaus. There's a space in progress where I told you she wasn't reading screen. I told you.
Sounds like you were mid-thought. Finish your sentence
Oh
so I can
Lord,
help you out.
I
Would you
don't
like
need
me
your
to help
help.
you describe a
No, man. Listen, this new phone. AI be wanting to join in all my conversations. Anyway, progress looks like advances, moments where we go forward. Progress looks like plateaus, moments where we hit this peak and it seems like we're just stuck in this space. If you ever lost weight or tried to gain weight, you know exactly what that plateau looks like. Progress also includes setbacks. There are going to be moments where we have to step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. This is normal with progress for us to be able to have an opportunity to evaluate how we are progressing. And progress includes integration, right? In that time where we begin to start integrating or applying some of the things that we learned during the high energy time. That is what progress looks like. And we also asked ourselves several questions to help us be able to assess if we are applying the law of rhythm to our lives in a healthy way, right? So this week, let me see. We are going to discuss the law of gender. Law 12 is the law of gender. What is the law of gender? The law of gender essentially states that everything contains a masculine and a feminine energy, and creation requires both of these energies. We cannot create without both dynamics of masculine and feminine, right? So, what does gender mean in the context of the law of gender, right? Gender refers to an energy and not a people. So, when we're talking about masculine and feminine, we're talking about the energy, masculine energy and feminine energy. We are not talking about people, male or female. The law, masculine and feminine energy resides in everything. So as a man, I have a masculine and a feminine energy. As a woman, you have a masculine and a feminine energy. These are energies, not descriptions of who we are, right? The easiest way to be able to help conceptualize this is that we want to think of gender as a function and not an identity, right? So when we say that, we mean we want to look at gender as actions or things that we can do. There is actions that are masculine in nature, and there are actions that are feminine in nature, right? So when we're looking at this law of gender, We want to see gender as a function and not an identity, right? So me being a male, I don't have to identify as masculine energy, right? Because me being a male has masculine and feminine energy. So those energies are not my identity. They are something that I use to navigate the life that I live, right? Or it is something that we use to navigate the life that you live, right? And that's every person has a male and female energy, a masculine and feminine energy. Every system has a masculine and feminine energy, and every process has a masculine and feminine energy. So now that we understand that these are functions, we want to take the space to be able to break down what functions are seen as. I feel like we need to have a group hug. Group hug for everybody. So, masculine energy. What is masculine energy? Masculine energy is the active principle, right? It is the motion, the momentum. What represents masculine energy? Action represents masculine energy, as well as logic and structure. Action is our movements, our decisions, what we put into action, the things that we verb, that we move with, that causes us to respond. Logic is our thought processes, and structure is the system that keep these within boundaries. Masculine energy also is our focus. It is our direction and our discipline, right? Do we keep our eyes on the prize, which is our focus? Do we know where we are going? Do we have that vision? Do we know where we are going? That is our direction. And then do we have the discipline to keep us going in that direction? That discipline is the rules or the boundaries we give ourselves to help us to achieve our goals. Masculine energy is also our will, our determination. Masculine energy is our decision-making process, and it is our execution of those decisions that we made, right? So as you see, these words that we use to describe masculine energy are not genderized. Whether you male or female, you have these abilities to have action, logic, structure, focus, direction, discipline, will, decision making, and execution. It resides in all of us, right? Masculine energy is the doing. It is the active principle. It is the initiating. It is taking it that step further. They're going above and beyond to be a little bit better, to get a better outcome. It is the protecting force. The masculine energy creates the boundaries that we move within, right? Examples of that doing, initiating, and protection are setting goals, creating plans to achieve those goals. It is taking the action towards those goals, and it is enforcing the boundaries. And you know, boundaries is one of the things that we all have worked on to reshape our relationship with. We recognize that sometimes our boundaries are too close to our limits. So when somebody pushes up to the boundary, they're pushing across our limits as well. And we wanted to be able to create a little space for healing, forgiveness, understanding, love, empathy, all those things that go between the boundary and a limit, right? Masculine energy also comes with some cautions. If we function too much in our masculine energy, we have a tendency to create burnout. So if you're feeling overdrained, there is a masculine imbalance going on. Aggression, that lack of patience, you know what I mean? That frustration, not having the time or the energy to be able to give to someone else or yourself. Too much masculine energy puts us in this space of control where we only feel safe if we control the dynamics, right? I know for a fact for myself that is one of the things that I recognize, that I have functioned in my masculine energy so much because I trusted myself with control. I saw how other people control. I ain't like that. I said I'd rather be the one in control because at least I know I care. Even with the best intentions, I was pushing myself into functioning in masculine energy only, right? Too much masculine energy creates rigidity. That's where those people become judgmental or feel as though that they can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that because someone else is different. I won't go there, I won't do this. Like I gave the example of me going out with my friend. One of the spots we went to is a bar. And me not drinking at a bar is interesting, right? And my homeboy said, if I stop drinking, I don't think I'll go out no more. That's functioning too much in your masculine energy because it creates a space of rigidity. Why can't you go out anymore? Part of going out was interacting with friends, family, people. It's not just about drinking, right? Too much masculine energy creates emotional suppression. How that emotional suppression looks is not allowing yourself the space to be able to feel, not giving yourself the permission to feel. Or when you do feel, you feel guilty for feeling other things, right? For feeling disappointment. You feel guilty, right? Even on the positive side, some people or some of us, there are times where we can't even express our joy in a healthy way because we function too much in masculine energy. I remember that video. It was a video about men frolicking. And these men smiling and laughing like boys as they frolicking, as though this was something new to them. But what it was them moving from a space of functioning in their masculine energy to a space to be able to have some balance where they can enjoy many different things, right? What was a struggle point for you? Emotional suppression? If that is a struggle point for a lot of us, right? In the sense that, come on, man. Emotional suppression has somewhat been normalized because we apply good and bad to emotional. So when we're emotional, we have the tendency to apply bad to it. So we don't give ourselves the space. Like, I don't want to be emotional. Being emotional is a terrible thing, right? So, many of us struggle with that emotional suppression. And specifically, like I talked about the sadness or the anger, but really, for a lot of us, the emotional suppression winds up being in the things that we felt good about. I remember, I think I shared this story about when I worked with these kids with reactive attachment disorder. And I used to play pool with this one little boy every single day. And if you know me, or if you don't know me, I'm not one of those people. I like, if you never played before, I give you like 2-3 games to learn how to play. But after that, I'm playing you like you've been playing your whole life. I'm not, ain't no easy, ain't no learning curve, ain't no, you got to get out here. And I remember the boy finally beat me because he had functioned in emotional suppression so long that when he felt the joy of success, he didn't even know what to do. Emotional suppression winds up showing us in our inability to be able to celebrate our victories, small, large, and anything in between. We feel bad for feeling good about what we have done, right? It took someone to point out how consistent I have been. And it took them to point that out before I recognized that that is something I can celebrate, especially as I look around and see others struggle with consistency, right? So that emotional suppression winds up showing not only in the negative emotions, but in our positive emotions as well, right? So we discussed what masculine energy is. What is feminine energy? Feminine energy is the receptive principle. It is being able to receive. And it's funny because that word receive has been showing up tremendously in my life. So I can recognize that there is a feminine energy imbalance going on because that word receive keeps showing up. And even though I have gotten better with being able to receive, there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen in that space, especially moving from a giver to a receiver, right? The brothers last night, that was one of the words that showed up in our conversation, receive. We have to be in a space to be able to receive, right? What is feminine energy, right? The receptive principle. Feminine energy represents our intuition. We're talking about learning to trust ourselves again. 90% of our reality is created by our subconscious. Our intuition is our subconscious recognizing a pattern before our conscious do. Intuition, creativity, and emotion are receptive principles, feminine energy principles. Flow, being able to move with the rhythm of life and flow between the polarities, is feminine energy. Nurturing, whether it be nurturing a life or an idea that you have for yourself, nurturing is a feminine energy, a receptive principle. Connection, the bond that we have between people, the bond that we have between our pets or our plants or our children or anything, that connection that we feel is feminine energy, receptive energy, right? Reflection, the space to be introspective and think about some of the steps and things you have done, is a feminine energy, a receptive energy. It's reflection, and you're receptive of all the possibilities, or receptive of the need to change and adjust, right? That is a feminine energy. Patience is a feminine energetic principle. It is a receptive principle. This is one of the reasons, this is another example of why we don't pray for patience. Patience is taught to us not through living, right? Having a dream and the patience for it to come to reality is a feminine energetic principle. And the word, receptivity, being able to receive, is a feminine principle, right? Kids don't struggle with that at all. They'll take anything you give them. They are fantastic examples of functioning in a receptive energy, right? So if you ever want to know if you are struggling with the ability to receive, let's take some time and look at children. Is it that easy for you to accept certain things, right? Receptivity is a feminine energetic principle, a receptive principle, right? Feminine energy is the being. And we have a ton of arguments and debates around women and feminine energy and this idea of just being. That is something that women do understand. Their being is valuable, right? It is the feeling. It is the giving ourselves permission to experience the spectrum of emotions that life gives us, right? And it is the receiving force again, right? Examples of that is our intuition and insight, creativity and imagination. It is our emotional awareness. It is our relationship building. It is our rest and integration. One of the reasons we struggle with that rest time is because we have a feminine imbalance where when it comes for us to be able to exist or be in that feminine receptive energy, rest, again, not identity, but energy, right? And we are uncomfortable with it. It is a prime example of our struggle with that feminine imbalance, right? Feminine energy also comes with cautions, just like masculine energy. Too much feminine energy creates passivity, right? And indecision. If you are struggling to make a decision, if you are one of those people who feels like once you get in a relationship, you don't have to make decisions anymore, you just allow things to happen and you don't say anything, that is a feminine energetic imbalance, right? That indecision, being able to not decide, is an example. So if we go out and I say, hey, do you want to eat? What would you like to eat? And you cannot say what you would like to eat, that is a symbol that symbolizes the feminine energetic imbalance that you may have, right? Lack of structure, that discipline, those boundaries. If you don't have that structure, that routine going on for yourself or those in your guidance, that is a sign that there is a feminine energetic imbalance because you don't have the structure. Structure is created through the masculine energy, right? If you are too much feminine energy winds up create those feelings of overwhelmed. Because once you start making action, once you start having direction and make decisions and execution, that creates the balance where you no longer feel overwhelmed. You are addressing what gives you overwhelmed. So if you are feeling or experiencing feelings of overwhelm, that is a sign that there is a feminine energetic imbalance that you have going on. Avoidance is an energetic imbalance, a feminine energetic imbalance, right? Because feminine energy does not require you to avoid things, whether it's conversations or people, that is not what feminine energy requires. It requires reflection, right? So if you are avoiding certain topics, certain people, certain things, you are functioning in a feminine energetic imbalance. The creation requires both of these energies. Creation happens when feminine energy conceives the data, and masculine energy brings that data into form. So the dream, the idea that we have is the feminine energy. Bringing those dreams to life, making those dreams take form, making them tangible is the masculine energy. And creation requires both. It requires the idea and the action to bring those ideas to life, right? That is, an idea is the feminine, and execution as the masculine creates the manifestation. So when we're talking about manifesting our lives or manifesting in our lives, it is not just the idea. It is not just the vision boards. It is the vision boards and the execution of that vision creates the manifestation. Inspiration, the muse to your life is the feminine energy. The discipline to function within that inspiration is the masculine energy. Both of those together create mastery, right? So when it came to musical instruments, I got the ukulele. The ukulele, it was inspiration. I want to be able to make my own music. I just want to figure out how to learn to play this on my own. I was inspired by the vibrations of music and the healing powers of music, right? I applied some discipline to that. I studied, I looked up notes, I looked up people, I did some work. That was the discipline. And now there's a sense of mastery. When I play certain songs with that ukulele, you think I know how to play ukulele, but I really don't. I've just combined, I've found the perfect equilibrium of my feminine energy and my masculine energy to create a mastery of some sort of concept, right? Emotions are the feminine energy. Communication is the masculine energy. We put those together and that creates connection. Both are equally important. We need to have the emotions. Emotions are natural, right? Communicating those emotions, that is putting them into action, being able to tell someone what you are feeling is masculine energy. And having those emotions with that communication creates the connection that you desire. That's where that example of NPR comes into play again for us, where we recognize the emotions of wanting to meet and connect with people, right? So we have these feelings. We go out, we want to experience these things, but then we have to open ourselves to communication, to actually talk to these people. And when we do that, we create connections everywhere we go. And connections give us memorable experiences to help shape our lives. Without this balance, our ideas just stay ideas. Our actions lack meaning. Our creativity never takes form. And our structure lacks life. Right. Next, we want to understand that gender operates in the mind, right? So as we talked about gender, the law of gender is a energetic principle, not an identity of man or woman. The feminine mind includes imagination, insight, and intuition, and our masculine mind is analysis, planning, and implementation. We both have both of those in our, and when it's out of balance, we can recognize this by, if we're thinking endlessly about something, those overthinkers are an example of being out of balance. If we're thinking endlessly but don't act, that is a feminine imbalance. We're stuck overthinking, but we have no actions behind that because we're stuck in this cycle. That is a feminine imbalance, right? Acting without reflection is a masculine imbalance. If we're just doing stuff, but really not pausing to see how the outcomes are affecting people and ourselves or the things around us, that is a sign that there is a masculine imbalance. What science supports the law of, man, my glasses all dirty, of gender? Neuroscience supports the law of gender by describing complementary brain functions, right? So the brain operates through complementary modes. Different neural pathways are used to do certain things. Certain neural pathways specialize in action and control, right? So it activates nerves in our brains on this side to help us think about action and control. But then we have other neural pathways that specialize in integration, emotion, and meaning, right? So neuroscience supports this idea of left and right brain, even though left and right brain is an oversimplification of this idea. But what it is saying is different neural pathways are required to do different things. This is one of the reasons why we can name them as masculine things, because these ideas activate these neural pathways, are feminine energetic things because these behaviors or ideas activate these neural pathways for ourselves, right? Another is physiology. Physiology shows up every week with us. And one way that physiology supports this law of gender is through agency and communion. So essentially what physiology says, there are two fundamental human orientations. Agency, which is goal directed. It is action, is assertion. It is independence. That is our agency. This, when you're talking therapy and they talk about taking agency, that is goal direction. That is assertion. That is action. That is independence. And then there's communion, which is our connection, our empathy, relationships, and care, right? Physiology explains this masculine and feminine energy through agency and communion, and it mirrors the law of gender. Excuse me, that was psychology. Physiology states that regulation requires two opposing systems, and we talked about it last week or the week before. It is the sympathetic system, the do, and the parasympathetic system, the receive, right? Physiology supports that, the idea of gender through sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. Implications of the law of gender. Main one, creation requires both insight and action. Insight without action creates stagnation, and action without insight creates chaos. So if you notice there's a lot of chaos in your life, that is, you are acting without insight. That means you're not taking that time to reflect, and that's where the chaos winds up being. Progress is shaped by integrating both of these ideas together. Growth requires discipline and compassion, right? Lasting growth, our development needs us to be able to be disciplined or structured in our security. So, when we talked about consistency, being able to be consistent comes through discipline and structure. Having a set time, having a set day, so you can schedule around that. That's discipline and structure, right? It also requires our compassion. We talked about that, giving ourselves grace and patience, knowing that the work will pay off at some point, and that patience comes from our self-understanding. We know that when we apply this type of effort, these are the outcomes we receive. So we have to understand ourselves by looking at our past. Ideas must be nurtured before they are executed. This is where that idea where people come and say, don't tell anybody your thoughts. Now, of course, they use a lot of fear-based thinking in saying that, but the foundation of that is true. It's not that you don't tell anybody your thoughts, it's that you want to nurture your thoughts and ideas before you start executing them. You want to think about the plans, think about the pitfalls, think about the direction, think about if you have to adjust. Vision needs an incubation period, just like creativity needs the space. And insight needs the time. Let me say that to you again. Vision needs an incubation period. This is how we nurture. Creativity needs the space. You have to create a space for creativity. That is how you nurture your creativity. And your insight needs the time. Not everyone is going to be able to understand your vision, your insights, but time will help them begin to see that. Leadership requires both vision and execution. A lot of times we want to see ourselves as leaders, but leadership requires vision and the ability to bring that vision to life, right? Effective leadership integrates vision, intuition, and people awareness. That is our feminine energy in leadership. Vision, intuition, and the awareness of the needs of people, right? Decision making, structure, and accountability is the masculine energy in our leadership. I've told you before, I identify as a servant leader. A servant leader is that vision, that intuition, and the awareness of the needs of my people, right? And when I know what they need, I try to provide for their needs so that I can start creating structure and accountability, which is the masculine aspect of leadership. Healing is both receptive and active. That is giving and receiving, right? Healing is balanced participation. It needs both. We need to be able to be in a space where we are open enough to give or tell our story, as well as being in a space that we are open enough to hear other stories that may not reflect our experiences. They may be very different, but they are all true, all the same. Most importantly, in the implication of the law of gender, and is one that we've said and we're going to say, It revolves around that word receiving. You must be open to receive. Your blessings cannot get to you if you are not open to receive. When somebody tries to do for you, are you like, no, you don't have to do that. I'll take care of it. You are not open to receive. If somebody tries to pay for your cup of coffee, pay it forward, and you like, oh no, you don't have to do that. You are not open to receive. Someone offers to pick you up from the airport, and you like, I don't want to be a bother. You are not open to receive, right? You have to be open to receive. That's one of the most important things that we want to understand, right? We block our growth by acting constantly, always feeling the need to be responsible. Responsible requires a response. We block our growth by always acting. We block our growth by trying to control the outcomes. We don't leave space for the universe and God and other people to help, to receive, to help flesh out our dreams, right? We block our growth by resisting things like rest or help. If you're saying no, if you're guilting yourself for being able to have some downtime, you are blocking your growth, right? And if we are in a space that we are struggling with these things, that is a sign that we are functioning in a feminine energy that is not balanced, right? So how is this law applicable to my life, right? It explains why some of our goals are stuck, right? Our ideas, we not bringing them to life, right? Progress happens when intuition and action works together, when our thoughts inform our actions to bring our dreams to life, right? That's what this law helps us understand why some of our things are stuck. Because either we're acting without any reflection or we're just stuck reflecting and not having any action, right? This law helps us grow without burnout. We respect the balance of both action and rest, right? When we function in firmness and kindness, when we function in commitment and rest, when we function in boundaries and empathy, that is the balance that we need to achieve our goals and to progress. We need both. We need to be firm, but also kind. We need to be committed, but also enjoy rest. We need to have boundaries, but also be empathetic with those boundaries, right? The boundaries can have some flex. That's one of the reasons why we don't want our boundaries so close to our limits, because there's no room for empathy, right? It helps us to understand why healing takes both patience and actions. Emotional healing needs space and compassion. Real change needs habits, structure, and commitment. If things are not changing in your life, it's around this. It's the habits, the structure, and the commitment you have to those things, right? A perfect example is what I gave is when I said about not drinking. That is not just the thought, but it is the habits, the structure, and the commitment to this idea of being a healthier version of myself. It is important. You need both. The law of gender helps us improve our idea of, man, listen, my eyelashes are curly. and they'll shed on me in a heartbeat. It improves our leadership and our influence. We need the vision and the empathy, direction and the accountability, right? I went to a training one time and they talked about when we're in leadership, we're the leader of a organization. We can do that with control. But when we're working with other leaders of other organizations, we have to do that through influence because we can't control them. We don't have that power or authority. So we have to be able to influence. It is the vision and the empathy. It's the direction and accountability. People respond best when we listen and then lead. And we understand where they're coming from and then make decisions. Not just making decisions and we haven't even heard what they need. We'll be responding to what we think they need instead of giving them exactly what they really do need. Right? The law of gender helps us to receive and not just give. We start to see the importance of receiving, receptivity, right? We all are aware of the power of giving and how giving can change a person's life. But we also want to be able to move to a space where we know that receiving can also change a person's life as well, right? That's important to all of us. Receiving is the completion of the cycle. After you've given all that you can give, the only thing left is for you to receive. And just like rest is the reward for a job well done, receiving is the completion of your giving cycle. They both are important. Now, what are some questions that we can ask ourselves to see if we are, applying the law of gender in a healthy way to our lives, right? One question we can ask, do I recognize active and receptive energies in myself? I recognize the active. I'm becoming clearer on the receptive. One of the things, for example, I talked about how it's been a little downtime with work and all that stuff. And I was actually a little bit hard on myself in thinking about how I could be doing something else. Even as something as simple as the clients need our support and all this other stuff, right? And I had to tell myself that for the last 3 years, we've just been stuck in a space of action. So this downtime is a reward for a job well done. And it gives us the time to be able to rest and recharge for the next leg of the race, right? So I'm in a space of clarifying what that receptive energy in me looks like. And one word that shows up that I think about that helps me to better identify receptive energy is reciprocity, right? I recognize that I give and I'm looking to see if people are giving back too. Am I comfortable switching between doing and being? No. That's a real answer, man. I'm way more comfortable in doing than just being. The only time that I really feel comfortable in being is when it relates to my resume. I feel like, and when I say resume, I mean my work resume and my people resume. You feel me? I'm like, hey man, my resume stands for myself. So I don't feel the need to prove to anyone whether I'm good enough or bad enough. You can ask about me, right? That's the only space that I feel most comfortable in just being, right? Because I know, well, not because I know, because I've been socialized to think, especially as a man, my value is in the doing, not in the being. And we're moving from that to recognize that my value exists in me being as well. Just me being. Just because I am a man, there is value to that. Just because you are a woman, there is value to that, right? Do I allow myself space for insight and reflection and intuition before acting? Yeah, I do that. I think a lot. I'm careful to say I overthink because I really don't overthink. I think enough until I'm comfortable to start acting, right? And then in the action, I recognize that I still need to create space for change and adjustment, right? That's that idea of building the ship while it flies. Do my decisions come from feeling and reasoning? Sometimes. Sometimes it's just feeling and no reasoning. Sometimes it's reasoning and no feeling. And I really do need to work on that balance between feeling and balancing that out with some reasoning, right? And a lot of times that is that patience in the space to create new ideas and solutions. It needs the space. So I need to be able to create the space for myself to be able to feel and reason. Do I rely more on discipline than compassion with myself? Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, when I am not disciplined, it is difficult for me to show myself compassion because I think about all the ways that I'm not being disciplined, right? And that's so ironic, or it's just a strange twist of life because I never really considered myself as a disciplined person until somebody told me I could never date you because you're too disciplined. But when I put my mind to something, I am disciplined to it. Even like we just got off the fast. When I decided I was going to do that fast, I was disciplined to that fast. When I decided I wanted to lose some weight, I was disciplined to losing that weight. I'm stick to that. If I decide I want to go get a new degree tomorrow, I'm going to stick it through till the end. Right? So I lean towards my discipline because I'm good. Discipline allows me to complete projects. But in that discipline, I don't leave enough space for compassion for myself or for others to be able to give me. I get stuck in worried about what that means, or misidentifying compassion as support for my inability or my laziness. That's wild. Do I express empathy and set clear boundaries? That's a new one. So at this point, I'm going to say yes. But in that idea of expressing empathy and setting boundaries, I'm still an infant in being able to do them both. I'm getting better, but this is a skill that I am learning now at this age to be able to be empathetic and have boundaries, because I confuse empathy and understanding with acceptance for a long time. And it allowed me to be able to experience things that I really didn't have to experience if I did not tie my empathy to understanding and acceptance, right? But now I can tie my empathy to my boundaries, right? Like I can understand, but that still doesn't mean I have to accept that, right? So in this idea, it's still in my infant stage, in growing in the idea of being able to express empathy and set clear boundaries. So, family, those are a couple of questions you can ask yourself as well as you assess your application of the law of gender for your own life, the masculine and feminine energy. And that is it for today's show. You can catch us Thursday. I hope to see you Thursday. Thursday, we're still reading, is Thursday Night Book Club, and we're still reading Changeling by Victor Lavelle. I'm about to say Lavelle Crawford. That's somebody different, Victor Lavelle. So you can catch us Thursday and just let me read to you. Or you can come back with Tuesday. Tuesday, we will start a new subject. I'm not quite sure. I'm actually thinking I want to go back into, we talked about emotional intelligence for a while, but I think I want to do a little bit around emotional regulation. I'm seeing that has been a recurring theme for my life, not just for me, but the people that I'm connected to, the people that I can see them living their life. The emotional regulation is a conversation that need to be discussed. So we might go back into emotional regulation to go a little deeper with our emotional intelligence topic, right? But before we go, I want to remind you that you love yourself and you love others. You deserve to be loved. You forgive others easily. Your heart is fully open, loving, and pure, and you can follow the voice of your heart. The most magnetic organ that you have, right, is your heart, and you can follow that voice. I appreciate your support as always. I appreciate your time, and I see you Thursday. If not Thursday, I'll see you back here next Tuesday for another episode of Soul Swami Live. Thank you, family, as always. And until next time, peace.